Welcome back to the Poisoner's Almanac, everyone. I am your co-host, Adam.
I'm Rebecca. Je m'appelle Rebecca.
It is Rebecca's birthday today.
It is.
She is overflowing with emotion
Woohoo!
and loudness.
I'm 40. Starting a whole new decade.
She turns 40 years old today. She looks 26, 27.
Aw, you're sweet.
She has wonderful. She has the best. She has, enviable. I grew up with two older sisters and a mother. I've seen some things that women do cosmetologically, the hair, the makeup, the fits, that whole vibe. I've seen that on the inside. And I know for a fact my wife has enviable skin. It is she has beautiful skin, and she is diligent. Some would say compulsive, not me.
Okay.
About putting on sunscreen every day to protect her gorgeous skin.
Well, yeah, the sun is out to get me.
The sun is out to get you.
I'm Mario in that part of the game where the sun's like moving around and trying to come and get you. That's what I feel like most days.
It's just such a comical thing.
Yeah.
It doesn't.
Every time I jump, it makes that sound. Bling. Bling. Like when you get a mushroom. Bloop, bloop, bloop. I can't make the noise personally, but yeah, you know what I mean. You know what I mean.
I do. So you're 40 years old today. You're looking 26.
Okay.
And
I'm feeling 40.
You feel 40. So happy birthday to you.
Thank you.
I hope that your day is full of low lighting.
Thank you. Appreciate
muffled audio input, stuffed animals, and copious amounts of alcohol.
Oh my God. I mean, I would have said coffee, but that works, I guess.
That's what I meant to say, coffee.
Yeah.
I was going to end up there. So, yeah. Happy birthday, and I love you.
Oh, I know you.
I'm really proud of how hard you work on the podcast and how wonderful of a mom you are, how kind of a person you are, and you are a fun wife.
Cool.
Yes. We have, I don't know, 10 or 15 different sound bites that are just inside jokes between you and me.
Yeah.
Which I enjoy. And we pull them out whenever we need to.
Sometimes I say them like when you're not there and people like look around like. Because, like I just feel like saying it. And so I say it.
Tell the inside joke that
when I tell them, you say it. Know these people. I just say it out loud because it feels nice to say things out loud sometimes. Weirdly, I guess. And
yeah,
people look at me like, okay.
Mm-hmm. And Becca, like one of the most common ones lately is there was a segment that Conan O'Brien did called Clueless Gamer. That is hysterical. If you guys haven't seen that, look it up on YouTube. It's amazing. Conan O'Brien is not a gamer, but he gets walked through popular video games along with a celebrity sitting next to him. And they have a third person that's kind of a guide who understands the game and, is big into video games. And Conan just reacts in real time, and it's hysterical, especially Final Fantasy.
Mm-hmm. That one was funny. Although I did like that game, but I get it because the storyline is a bit.
The developers of the game, many of the developers, they have like a hallway right outside the door where they're filming. It looks to be like 10 or 15 of the actual development team are sitting in the hallway. And I guess they're like listening in as much as they can. But at one point, Conan opens the door to the hallway and says, he just starts yelling, "What's the point of this game?"
Yeah, it's the Final Fantasy. Was it 15?
Yes.
It was the one with Noctis.
Yes.
And all the emo boys, the emo boy band.
Your Japanese nightclub.
Yeah.
But anyway, they do Resident Evil.
And
at one point, the guy and the girl.
Is Leon in that one? Leon?
Maybe. You can push a button to emote in one part of the game. And the guy awkwardly throws a thumbs up way too high in the air and goes, appreciate it.
Appreciate it. I think that's the girl that does it.
The girl does that?
Yeah, like he keeps telling her something and like she doesn't say anything, so he keeps doing it and she's like, appreciate it. Like, okay, thank you.
And so every so often, Becca or I, somewhere else in the house, will just say, appreciate it.
Yeah. Or if it's me randomly in Publix.
Which is fine.
Appreciate it. Usually if I see like a 2-for-1 deal, like a Sogo deal, appreciate it.
It's perfectly normal.
I get weird looks. It's fine.
Story time. I escaped a religious cult 7 years ago. Without going into too much detail here, let me just say it was an extremely difficult journey. My mental health spiraled downhill, and I thankfully had enough presence of mind to seek out a therapist to work through what was going on with me. My therapist helped give me context to all the wild things I'd walked away from. He was kind, patient, and guided me through what my new normal might look like. I had never had healthy boundaries in my life. Therapy helped show me that as a result of being in a cult or high control group, I had never fully become my own person. It's a shocking thing to learn at the age of 32. I learned how to communicate to the people around me what I was going to do and, more importantly, not do with my time, energy, and resources. BetterHelp is the sponsor of this episode, and they're on a mission to make starting therapy easier. BetterHelp is a platform where therapists and their clients can communicate effectively and get the most out of therapy. There's a journal inside the platform for personal reflection, and there are group sessions on a number of different topics available every day. Starting therapy is easy with BetterHelp. Fill out a questionnaire, and you'll match with a therapist in as little as a couple of days. One of the best features of BetterHelp is that if the first therapist doesn't feel like the right fit, you can easily switch to another one until you find someone you really connect with. They carefully make sure therapists on the platform are well qualified, and their customer support team is there to help if you have any questions. With over 7,000 reviews and a 4.5 rating on Trustpilot, BetterHelp is a platform you can trust. If you're struggling and think you'd benefit from a therapy session, go to betterhelp.com/almanac or choose the Poisoner's Almanac during sign up and get 10% off your first month of therapy. So that'll bring us to the old housekeeping segment.
Not housekeeping.
Make sure to follow us on whatever platform you're listening on. Thank you in advance for leaving 5-star reviews. Those act like a digital tip jar that pushes the podcast further into the algorithms and to other listeners like yourself that enjoy it. Be sure to follow us on socials. We have links in the show notes, specifically the podcast Instagram. If you're listening on your phone, screenshot from your phone and post that to your socials and tag us. We would love to see that. We will post it to our story as well, so we can kind of.
Also, I started something new with it. I did a video format kind of thing. What is that? What the kids call it? It's like a green screen video picture thing.
That's right. All the cool kids are doing short form video format.
I should know more about technology than I do. Like, I'm not like.
You have.
But like I grew up in a I didn't like the school that I grew up in. We had one computer lab and we went there maybe twice a year at most. So like we didn't really do a whole lot with technology and we still had like the Nokia phones. You just played Snake on your Nokia phone. Your indestructible Nokia phone.
Nokia phone. You could drop those from a plane and win a war.
And they had like the cool ringtones. Doot, doot, doot. Remember those?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I do though.
Mm-hmm.
Becca has this strange aversion to technology, even though she uses it every day. She just doesn't have confidence. It's really a confidence thing. Like you're plenty smart enough to handle technology.
Yeah, but it's like I think I'm just lazy with technology sometimes. And I don't like seeing myself in videos too often. So it's like it feels awkward me talking to myself.
So no, but you're talking to the people.
Yeah, but like in the moment, it's like I feel like I'm just talking to my, nothing.
You get used to it.
Yeah.
You get used to it. So anyway, we're exploring short form video for the podcast Instagram post. And assuming that TikTok stays around, it looks, I don't know, they added it back to the Apple App Store to service updates.
I don't know. Nothing's real,
who
Adam.
knows?
Nothing's real.
Knows?
Time's relative. We don't know anything. This is all a dream.
So, short form video content.
I'm kidding.
is, extremely popular, of course. And we would love to push into video for the podcast at some point. We'll see how that works. Because, I mean, the vast majority of podcasts that you find, you find them because you saw them on socials. And it's video from their actual podcast.
And there's many a time that the looks I give you are...
Oh, they must be seen by the audience.
They're,
methinks.
They're telling, I think.
Let's see. Oh, the Patreon is up and running. Link in the show notes to join that. It is $1.50 USD per month to join. Perks would include bonus episodes, the option to leave us a voicemail that we can play here on the podcast and react to. What else is there? Oh, shout out by name on the podcast. You think I would have this down by now? It's been almost a year. And speaking of the people who get shouted out by name on the podcast, they are as follows: 87 Pins Girl 71, Mara Santiago, Kate the Fairy, Grace Lahan, Genevieve, Nahev Shetreat, Jay Went, Inken Hafner, Kiri Yorsek, Tay of Sunshine, Monique, Shane R, Sue Steves, James Mills, Megan Geiler, Liz B, Willie Wolf NZ, Mama G, Nicole Rivers, Richard Miyako, Heather Nolan, Katie Rose, Kaylee, Sasha Rubel, Maya Shostak, Maggie's Yarm, Ogre the Viking, Lynn Rocket, Brett Moser, Zaid, Neil Houdini, Nicole Crane, Jefferson Vargas, Carmen Q, Sarah G, Knittin' Ninja, Estar, Olive Octopus, Betsy Rich, Terrorsaurus Hex, T-Bug, Christine Moljadi, Morgan Brittingham, Blau Frosch, also known as Clara Jurisons, Vix, Caitlin C, Anne Maria, Carl Ziegler Jr., Clyde, Jennifer Wilson Richter, Sarah Jessica Parker. I'm just kidding. I just noticed a woman with 3 names. I figure I have to put that in. Sarah Michelle Geller.
Okay.
Macaulay Sterland, Too Fidgety, Wendy G, Elena MK, Vilma Anderson, Caitlin Martin, Pungrammed 101, Minna Snoda SPT, Michael McCombs, Tasha Stewart Slattery, Prim Risen, Simone Valdez, Christian Schradergaard, Tina at Have Not Had My Coffee, Maria Anna, Bonnie, Oma D, Ryanel Alara, Kristen Arnold, Aaron Carey, Lynn Simpson, Melissa Emmel, Desiree Davis, Jennifer Ramirez Johnson, Sarah Jessica Parker.
I knew you were going to do that. Oh my God.
Dalek Party, The Warped Witch, Sometimes Jules, Mr. Slave, Dizzy Dancer, Creative Otter, Yadmit, and Supergirl Sway.
Cool.
Yeah.
Maybe next time I'll read them just for fun.
That would be fun.
Switch it up.
Send questions or contact suggestions to the Instagram with a comment or a DM. And I'm going to repost the link to leave us a voicemail on the Patreon. So look for that.
Come talk to us.
Mm-hmm. Also, we have merch. I'll repost that link as well in case you guys want to grab a hoodie or a t-shirt or a sticker. They're super cool. All the cool kids have them.
I need one.
You
need a hoodie. It got cold again. It's like the high is 44 today, and I don't appreciate that.
It's very cold here.
I got the little thing that was like, oh, freeze warning for this morning. I'm like, oh, happy birthday to me.
So that will conclude housekeeping and bring us to our topic for today, my dear, which is what?
Your mom. I'm kidding. No. I'm just feeling, I'm 40 now. I'm trying to stay cool. Do you like swimming?
Yeah.
You may not like it after this episode. But at least in the particular places that I'm going to talk about, because we are talking about rivers. You ever been like swimming in a creek? Like, you ever like done that whole like weird country boy, let's go jump in the creek?
I have. I was in West Georgia.
Give me your hand.
What?
Give me your hand.
Why?
Just give me your hand.
Okay.
Bad. Do you know what's in those things?
So I was in West Georgia stick with me. The town is called Tallapoosa. That is the name of the town.
Oh, okay.
The clinical rotation was in Bremen, Georgia. I was staying in, it's pronounced Villa Rica, but of course that is a Latin name. Villa Rica is how you would actually pronounce that, but this is the deep south where no one knows how to pronounce anything.
There's a restaurant called Villa Europa, and I've heard people around here call it that Villa Europa. That Europa place.
Dude, I love it.
I was like, okay.
Anytime deep Southerners get exposed to any sort of culture, it is a TV show waiting to happen. But a friend at the clinic that I was doing the clinical rotation, I was like, hey, you ought to come to the rope swing with us. And I was like, excuse me, what?
Have you ever heard
you
of
guys have a rope swing like over a creek or something?
You ever heard of a brain-eating amoeba?
100%. From you.
Yep. No.
I showed up to this place and the rope swing was legit. Like it swung a good 75 feet. There was a platform up on a high bank on the, like one bank was really high. The other was lower where you could actually access on foot. And people were chilling on the banks of this creek or small river like they were at the beach. It was the most redneck thing you've ever seen.
They do this for fun?
This is what they do for fun. This is the middle of the summer.
Now, I've been in a creek, but it was for my ichthyology class when we were collecting fish to study.
Yes. So we get out there and I see how high this rope swing is. And I was like, oh, you weren't kidding. But I did. I swung off of it 2 or 3 times. And thankfully the water was deep enough to, prevent injury.
So your coccyx was fine?
Coccyx was totally intact by the time this was over, including my sacrum. My xiphoid process was fine.
That's nice.
The obturator internus also intact.
Oh, okay.
I know that was your next question. And it was the most redneck thing I've ever seen in my life. And yeah, fun times.
I won't even get in the lake. Like I can swim and I do like water. I don't like the temperature changes between getting in and out of water. I'm not a fan of that. But the weightlessness of it, I get that. I like it pretty good. And I can swim. I learned how to swim very early on. Because my mother has always been afraid of me. Look, there's like this weird thing. Mom has always been afraid of me either being kidnapped, dying in a fire, or drowning.
In other news, I have no idea why you're anxious.
Yeah. But drowning was a big one. Like she would always bring that up. I had a dream about you drowning, so I don't think you should go to. But I'm a great swimmer. I am. Mm-hmm. So that's not to say that you can't drown being a great swimmer. But I don't like lakes because at least the lake here, it's kind of gross. Now I've heard in Canada they have like the land of 1,000 lakes. It's supposed to be beautiful up there, right?
Yeah, is that like those lakes north of the Great Lakes?
But it's in Canada, okay. Right?
I know Blair could tell us.
But like they, like the lake here just feels kind of dirty and gross and icky. So like I'll go in a boat, but I'm not jumping in it. But so we're talking about some toxic rivers, and there are a lot of them. So I basically kind of picked a few for this one, and maybe we'll come back to this topic later on a different episode. But yeah, kind of like it's just a lot. There's a lot of rivers to talk about. Not just rivers, there's lakes and ponds and all sorts of waterways that are toxic out there. But to narrow it down so that I wouldn't go off on some crazy, I wouldn't get sidetracked. I narrowed it down to rivers this time.
You get sidetracked?
Right.
That's weird.
So we're mainly talking about the most toxic and polluted rivers, which makes them a risk for disease and death to those living nearby or those who swim in them or eat from them. Like I said, if I don't mention one that you're thinking of, be aware that there's just so many out there. So we'll probably come back to it in a later episode. But I want to talk about a few that maybe some haven't heard before. I know everyone has heard of the Ganges River. We're definitely got to talk about that one, but there's a few on here that you may not know. So yeah, I did try, like I said, to pick some that don't get talked about much. But yeah, if I go beyond rivers and try to do other things in the same episode, it's going to be, my brain will want to include like every body of water, and this episode will have to be retitled "The Never Ending Story." So, the never ending story. But like, so I know about the garbage patch in the Pacific Ocean, right? You've heard about that. Pretty awful. And it's very sad and telling of how many how many humans view the earth. But the toxic rivers I want to discuss today can have acute and chronic effects for those living on their banks or nearby. Yeah, so like I said, we can have other episodes in the future of other toxic waterways because there's just no way I can discuss all of them in one episode. But yeah, none of these is in particular order because, to be honest, all of them are pretty bad. And I couldn't pick which should be considered more toxic. So I don't know. Maybe I'll change my mind as I go, or you can give me your opinion. We'll see.
Okay.
So first, let's start with the Citarum River. Citarum. It's pronounced the Citarum River. Technically, it's the Tarum River if you think about it, because the CI in the beginning means river in this area. This river is the longest and largest in West Java, Indonesia. It's the third longest in Java overall. And I know we recently talked about Indonesia with the sulfur mining, if you remember. So we're back in Indonesia. Humans have lived by this river since before the 4th century BC, and it was a part of the Tarumanagara Kingdom. Tarum is the Sudanese word for indigo plant, which was important to the people's history there. So now there are currently hydroelectric power plant dams along it, and it's also used to irrigate numerous rice paddies downstream. This river has long been important for agriculture, fishing, and just the economy overall here. Now, the water from the river is actually used by those living along it for drinking and bathing as well.
I'm immediately concerned.
There's around 25 million people in total that, need this river, that are served by this river. So over 5 million people live in the basin of this river, and it's known as one of the most polluted rivers in the world, if not the most. In 2008, it was called the dirtiest river in the world by the Asian Development Bank while approving a loan for its cleanup. And in 2013, it was titled most polluted river in the world by various researchers and media outlets.
I'm immediately interested in what the Asian Development Bank is.
We're going to talk a little bit more about them in just a minute. But yeah, because they are important in helping with some of the cleanup of this river.
Yeah.
Now, the Citarum River has been polluted over the past decades with trash, plastic, industrial waste, and sewage, especially from upriver and the capital city of Bandung. Also, for further context, Asian rivers overall account for 2/3 of the plastic pollution in the ocean.
Wow.
It's a lot, yeah. In total, the Indonesian government estimates that 1,500 tons of solid waste enter the Citarum River every day. We're talking plastics and
15 tons.
All kinds of, just household waste, that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Now, this problem stems from poverty, a lack of education on the subject, and a lack of regulation and enforcement of laws against dumping. There's also not exactly sites that are there to pick up trash or to take trash, so it just gets dumped either like on the banks of the river or in the river itself.
I don't think there must not be any sort of robust sanitation system.
No, not in most parts of where the river runs through, but because household waste simply gets stored in piles, like I said, at the river. Some parts of the water surface you actually can't even see because it's hidden by all the trash. Like it's just floating river of trash, basically. It's also important to mention that some marine animals or birds may also mistake the trash for food and ingest it or become entangled in it. So it's dangerous there. The hydroelectric dams along the river are also blocked and damaged by the waste as it gets kind of caught up in there.
Well, hang on.
It's a lot of trash.
There are hydroelectric dams on the river. But they put 15 tons of solid waste in there every day.
Yeah, the people that live around there, yeah.
Brother.
There's been a lot of lack of education, and like they just think that this is how we live, so this is what we do. And there are people who like look at this and they're like, this isn't right. We got to do something about this. But it's overwhelming when you don't have,
Of course,
the ability or the resources to do something about it.
Well, that's why the Asia Development Bank caught my attention. I'm like, oh, it sounds like it provides funding to improve quality of life.
So some waste that isn't thrown into the river may be burned, but it is much less than what is thrown in. And the fumes also can cause health problems and higher incidences of disease, depending on what's being burned. There are over 2,000 industrial factories along the river basin, mainly dealing with textiles and garments, like clothing.
Yes. Yes. That's going to be a big part of it.
And most of those dyes and stuff coming in as well.
Most of that manufacturing is it's manufacturing products that come back to the U.S.
Yeah.
Those are U.S. companies doing that. A lot of them.
Yeah. Now, these are a main cause of the pollution outside of the obvious trash all along the river's surface. These factories have been consistently dumping such chemicals as lead, mercury, cadmium, cobalt, manganese, chromium, zinc.
No, it's okay. It's fine.
And polonium.
Polonium.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Like that radioactive metal that killed Russian defector Alexander Litvinenko.
Yes.
That polonium. It's a story we covered a while back, by the way.
You mean the metal that Doc Brown from Back to the Future bought from the Libyans who eventually killed him for it? I'm just kidding. That was plutonium.
Yeah.
To power the DeLorean.
They're different. Okay.
1.21 gigawatts.
Polonium's a little different. I mean, they're both radioactive. Anyway.
You die either way.
Yeah. So specifically, the lead content was found to be 1,000 times the U.S. EPA limit for drinking water. So that's no good. For those of you who have not listened yet to our episode on lead, health effects caused by the heavy metal include anemia, kidney damage, heart disease, brain damage, reduced fertility, memory problems, and miscarriage. Remember when we talked about lead, we talked about the loony gas bin because they were still making gasoline with lead in it and people were, not cool.
The guy washing his hands with leaded gasoline to prove it was safe.
And we know what happened to him.
I love corporate America. It's so awesome.
Lead has the ability to cross the blood-brain barrier and the placenta, giving it the ability to affect neurological processes and development for infants and children. So it's a big problem. All of the chemicals mentioned are responsible for respiratory problems, various cancers, skin blistering and ulceration, organ damage or disease, including the brain, kidneys, and liver, and death in some cases. People have said, like, you can go in the water and you'll be blistered and have ulcers and stuff, like a day after. Like it's bad.
That's insanity, bro.
So don't go in the water. Don't go in this water.
Don't go to the ocean. Go to the beach.
Yeah, it's not. You don't want to get in any of the rivers that I mentioned.
The ocean is the shark's house.
Now, other chemicals that have been found in the river include runoff from farming. So that's like pesticides, like pyrethroids, and other toxic substances. And they often ignore the safety guidelines when they're using these substances.
Look, it takes an army of regulation and regulators.
So they put
people to play by
as much as they like on there. So, and much of this runoff and these industrial chemicals flow downriver to where rice is grown, and that contaminates the food that people eat as well as the water that they're drinking, bathing, brushing their teeth with, anything like that.
You have to, who was I talking with? I was talking with a patient, his son. The patient is retired military. His son is 15 years in at this point. He's going to go to 20 and then retire. They were talking about, foreign governments that just don't care about their people.
Yeah.
They just don't care if you live or die.
Well, then you have like the governments too, where it's like they didn't start in a great place. They didn't exactly have the benefit to start in a great place. So like with India, when we talked about Bhopal, like you have to choose like, well, do we want our people to be healthy and bankrupt, or do we want them to have money and food, but ignore?
They die of starvation or they die of illness.
So it's like they only have money for one thing, and it's kind of hard when it comes to that. But
it takes a robust and fully formed ideology to actually support a free and fair society.
And it's a very overwhelming, and you have to have a lot of people that are pushing and fighting for that, and it takes time to get there. Like when we talk about the cleanup of some of these rivers, it doesn't happen quickly.
No, God,
it's too much to happen quickly.
Like the commitment you would have to have from the people who pull the levers of power to actually affect positive change for the next 20, 30 years.
And it's expensive.
Yes.
And also just the heavy metals alone, it takes them decades to clean up and all that. So
it makes me think of Cape Cod and how that entire industry around in that area was overfished, and then basically the population of fish was extinct.
Yeah.
And they're still gone. They still haven't come back.
That is a very interesting topic, honestly, of overfishing. It's and people may not think that affects people, but it really does.
Oh God.
Because it affects entire ecosystems.
They were getting in fistfights with the cops at the dock.
Yeah.
When they said we have to shut you guys down. The government literally shutting you guys down. You can't fish here anymore. You can ruin ecosystems. It's possible to do that.
Well, the reason why you have sharks coming in closer too is because they don't have anything where they used to eat as much. So now they're going to come in and look for other things like other sharks and little bite here, a little nibble here of a person. And usually sharks bite to figure out what something is. So if you're that something, I mean, they might not want to eat you, but they're going to figure out what you are. So also, sharks are in the ocean. Watch out for that. But yeah, so not fun. Now, a 2016 report by Greenpeace found that 1,000 hectares or 2,500 acres of rice fields were contaminated by heavy metals.
Good God.
These chemicals and pesticides also bioaccumulate in fish and seafood populations that are left. And as we remember, you talked about bioaccumulation. I just love talking about bioaccumulation. Kind of a nerd for bioaccumulation.
Oh, please lay it on us.
Because it gets kind of stored in that animal's tissues, its muscles and stuff. And so the next animal eats it and they get contaminated with it. And then the thing that eats it gets contaminated with it, and it kind of goes up.
They accumulate these things in their flesh, but they themselves do not become ill necessarily.
If there's enough, they can.
Sure, but they retain enough to make it a problem for humans. I
mean, the fish, we don't really know the fish are ill until they're dead most of the time. So that's, I mean, and there's fish kills with many of these chemicals. As if the heavy metal gets high enough, then they'll die too.
That's right.
So
nothing but good news on the podcast today, folks.
So
it's my wife's birthday.
So basically seafood populations that are left, because especially in this river now, you've got plastics and all these other chemicals that are starving the water of oxygen and everything else. So
I just saw just a little bit of footage from when you were researching the last couple of days. It's ghastly.
Yeah.
It's so sad. It's just so sad to look at, because I know the vast majority of those people have no recourse. They can't call a congressman.
Yeah, they can't. I mean, it's not in their power to do.
They can't protest. It's awful.
Yeah, much of the marine wildlife here has succumbed to the pollution. The river's been starved of oxygen. There's just dead zones in these places. Dead fish just float to the top. There's animals, carcasses floating on this river. It's rough. So then you have this also This also complicates the fact that thousands of children here endure malnutrition and health problems as a result of all this, whether it's eating contaminated fish or animals, or also not having fish to eat or not having food to eat. Another problem that adds to this is the raising of livestock upriver. So waste from these animals ends up in the river as well, leading to nitrogen and phosphorus and various pathogens entering the water. High levels of nitrogen can actually cause these algal blooms, and cause oxygen levels to fall, causing fish kills. They can also make animals really sick if they ingest that water. All along the river, fish and animal carcasses, like I said, they just float around with the plastic and other rubbish. Those who once fished the river now just pick up plastic to sell to recycling centers. So it's become more of a refuse fishing, I guess, because they'll buy it and it's like they can't catch fish. So that's what they do.
Mm-hmm.
Human waste is also dumped into the river as there is no sewage system really around. West Java's environmental department estimates that 35.5 tons of human waste is dumped into the river each day, alongside 65 tons of livestock waste.
Brother.
It's a lot.
It's like they have pockets of modern day technology with their manufacturing, but then their sanitation is like 1830s London.
Well, if those companies, though, are being brought there from other companies like America or Britain or wherever they're from, like they are being paid for in part by the American or foreign country that put it there, right? Like part in part because they're benefiting from whatever they make.
Sure. Well, I mean, but again, who has the leverage at that negotiation table?
Oh, yeah. The people.
You know? They don't have to. And again, the EPA doesn't have jurisdiction in Indonesia.
Well, they're going to say yes to those companies, though, because it gives people jobs, too.
Of course. It can keep people from starving.
Yeah.
But they're going to
Not saying they pay them well, but.
No, they don't pay them to scale. Yeah. It is a massive ethical dumpster fire because it is a foreign country. And so regulation doesn't extend from, the normal U.S. rate. That's why they build these plants there. That's why they built a plant in Bhopal, because they knew they could. They knew they could blow that thing up, and it kind of wouldn't matter. Not really.
We live in the capital. It's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Here we are. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so in 2013, the Asian Development Bank recorded that levels of fecal coliform bacteria were present in the Citarum water samples at 5,000 times the safe exposure limits.
Everything's fine.
This huge presence of bacteria has led to the Citarum becoming a vector for disease for the millions of people who consume its water. And people do drink the water from this river. It's what they have.
Or die of dehydration.
Mm-hmm. So this bacteria can lead to ear infections, dysentery, typhoid fever, gastroenteritis, and hepatitis A. Among other things. Doctors along the Citarum also see increased incidence of impetigo. It's usually a childhood illness, but I mean, dermatitis and scabies.
Remind me what impetigo is.
It's an infection. You see it's an infection of the skin, and you can see it a lot of times on a child's face, like around the mouth.
Okay.
Stuff like that, yeah. It's an infection. Mm-hmm. Also, flash flooding in this area with rainfall is common, bringing all of that contaminated, waste-filled, and plastic-covered water into villages and homes. Sometimes it covers them almost completely, causing damage and contamination to many areas.
It's just bathing the land in chemical soup.
Yeah. Now, this is
I'm gonna vomit.
This is a lot of pollution from a good amount of sources. And if you were to swim in this river, you could expect to be at high risk for skin irritation and rashes, gastrointestinal problems, localized infections, and chronic health conditions. So maybe don't do that at all. Honestly, if you see the river, you're going to be like, no, I'm not getting in that because it is bad. It looks terrible. It looks depressing.
Yes.
It's really sad.
If you watch the footage of these rivers, it's like it's everything that's wrong in the world in a single video.
I'll be making, an Instagram about it. I need to catch up on that, but I will be doing that. Now, unfortunately, the people living there in the towns on or near the river have no choice.
Yes.
This is their source of drinking water and water for bathing and cleaning with.
Yeah.
So what is being done about it?
Well, we can eat the rich. That's one option.
The Indonesian government did launch a cleanup program in 2018 named Citarum Harum with the help from the Asian Development Bank, who in 2013 provided a $500 million loan to go to efforts to hopefully make the water drinkable someday. They have utilized the Indonesian military to help with clearing the river of trash, but there is a lot of it. Their deadline was honestly pretty ambitious as it was set for 2025. Knowing
to do what?
To clean it up by then.
No.
And this was in 2013. to clean it up by 2025.
But you can't. You have to stop dumping. That's what's got to happen.
Well, and also like you have people like this is just how they know to live, and there's nowhere else to put it. So like you've got to create some way for them to.
Yeah, it's a multifaceted.
Yeah.
I'm assuming they were coming at it from every angle to actually have a chance of success.
Well, they've also involved the surrounding communities in waste collection. I mentioned that those like poor fishermen who once sold fish from the river now pick up and sell recyclable bottles and packaging for money for groceries, phone credits, and even discounts on their energy payments for those who have energy, like who have electricity, maybe.
Yeah.
Also, education of waste management has been a part of this cleanup project, encouraging people not to fill the river with household waste products. The government has also put regulations on industrial waste as well. It's challenging because while education is helpful, one survey that was done actually showed that the people knew that waste was bad, but not everyone knew it could cause health problems, right? So this was new to them.
They're not making that connection.
Not everyone is open to change, even for the better. So it must be consistently discussed and enforced for the cycle of dumping and pollution to stop.
Oh, it's going to take time.
Yeah. And for even the cleanup itself is going to take time with all those chemicals and stuff too. So
I think of, okay, you and I would be considered, we're older millennials, soon to start drawing Social Security, if it exists.
Soon? I ain't that old.
I'm just kidding. It's a joke. I'm exaggerating to be humorous.
Oh, okay.
This is a joke. No, we are both digital natives. We've grown up like the both of us. We logged on to Facebook for the very first time from a desktop computer, like in 2004, 5, 6, around that time. At least I did.
Excuse me, MySpace?
You didn't care. MySpace. There we go. MySpace came first, you cowards. But oh my God, compare us to boomers and their interaction with the internet. That is like the intellectual inertia from one generation to the next regarding learning something new. Right? So you can apply that. Human nature is, similar in many contexts. You can apply that to the Indonesian people. Let's say the current generation that is dumping trash, they make no connection between dumping waste in the river and it causing health issues. The generation behind them, they're growing up with that knowledge, but it will take the amount of time and effort on the part of their local government that it will take. It'll be that generation will have to eclipse the age of the current waste dumping generation. Like the kids who are actually going to change it, they're children right now. That's how long it takes a generational turnover to actually achieve what they're looking for. And then you have to hand it to the next generation to preserve the gains you've made.
And hopefully they continue.
God, I hope so.
And not backtrack. But
man, I hope so.
And I think
people are going to start leaving.
Well, or dying.
100. Yeah, either way, they'll jump on a boat and see if they can make it to.
What's that mentality of? Well, my dad did it this way, and it was good enough for him.
Yes.
It's that kind of mentality of. It's like, okay, it's not always.
Yes. And that was an acceptable way to think before the internet.
I don't know. See, for me, it wouldn't be acceptable even then, because what if your dad was like this racist, horrible, homophobic person?
Sure.
And you're just like, well, he thought this way. It's good enough for me. It's not good enough for you because it's wrong.
Exactly.
It's wrong. Whether, and I feel like at some point in your life, you have to make the decision to say, I'm going to continue to think that way. Or I'm going to go learn what's actually right.
Yeah.
And have my own mindset. And I have my own way of thinking and have my own way. And I know we just got off on this subject. But
no, this is pertinent.
It just, because it to a point, there's just no more excuse for, well, I was just raised that way. And it's like, okay,
yes.
You can use that as an excuse when you're a child, maybe, and you don't have any other access to anything else. But then, when you're grown, or like the way you treat people, you cannot sit there and, or the way you treat this planet, you can't just like blame that on how you were taught.
Totally.
Because you have a will of your own.
Mm-hmm.
You can think how you want to think.
Mm-hmm.
You're not programmed to be just like your parents.
Yeah.
Thank God.
Yeah.
And, I'm not saying that you can't have traditions like they had, or you can't like enjoy enjoy like things that they kind of gave you in that way. But if something doesn't sit right with you, that should be a clue to be like, maybe I don't think like that.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe this isn't something that works.
Sure. Case in point, I really value hard work. You've watched me work hard the whole time you've known me. There's never been a time where I haven't done that. Hard work and enjoying the fruits of your labor. That's a core value for me. It's also a core value for workers' rights.
Yeah, as it should be for everyone.
I do both.
I mean, we've talked about, the girls with Fossy Jaw, work in the phosphorus companies, and the radium girls, like they had to fight just to get, just to be seen.
You can have unilateral political views until your jaw falls off. And then all of a sudden, you're into workers' rights and unions and worker protection and OSHA.
Yeah, I mean, there was a time when people were like, radium is healthy for you.
Yeah, radium's good for you. What are you talking about? Let me wash my hands with this leaded gasoline.
Like, am I going to go drink some radium water and be like, well, my mom did it and it was good enough for her?
The thing I've learned ever since, joining the workforce and having a child and, all that fun stuff is change is constantly happening.
It will.
The world is constantly changing. Hopefully it's moving forward, but the most constant thing about the world is change.
Yeah, and you cannot grow as a person without change. You cannot.
And that built-in idea that I will never have to change is an extremely...
It's depressing.
It's self-sabotaging. You're talking about drilling a hole in the boat that you're sailing in.
It's like, you don't want to grow as a person. You don't want new experiences and that's me talking. I don't like change, but I know
But I know I know exactly what you're saying.
I know that I need it in order to grow, to learn, to understand that kind of thing. And like, especially if you want to be someone who thinks critically, someone who thinks for themselves.
Don't say critical thinking.
You can't just go into... I'm just going to watch this TV show and repeat everything they say, or this news station and repeat everything they say. And that, I'm just going to be one of them. Like, no, be you. Do something that matters.
Yes, yes. And so to the point, in order to remedy a river that is like this, it is a multifaceted situation, but it takes a society that is willing to grow and change.
Honestly, this river could be analogous to like people's mindsets, if you think about it. Oh
God. Of course.
Like,
how poetic of you.
What is the cost? And are we going to pay the cost to have a cleaner, healthier, stronger mindset and way of living?
Yeah.
But, if you keep drinking crap, if you keep bathing in crap, it's going to stay that way.
You're going to get that old typhoid, kid.
Instead of cleaning it up. And like, obviously the people that are living around this river, like, they have to live this way, and no one is really like, they can only do so much. It's the people who have the money, and people who have the
levers and power.
Like, they're the ones.
That's right.
That are gonna.
It's almost as if with great power comes great responsibility.
Oh, don't even with that. Okay. Oh my God.
Oh man.
Anyway, we got off on some deep stuff. Deep rivers, y'all. Deep rivers.
Lesson learned. Tough stuff.
That bothers me though when people say things like, "Well, I was raised this way." So you stayed this way your entire life?
And you turned out terrible.
You've never asked any questions? You've never questioned anything. You've never looked at anything for yourself. You've never thought critically about anything in the world. Yeah. Anything? Have you read a book? Okay, I'm getting mad. I'm sorry. It's my birthday.
Groupthink is not something you put in your positive traits on your Hinge profile, just so you know.
It's just... Anyway, back to rivers. Actual rivers. So, I looked for any mention of adequate waste facilities or sewage plants being installed or planned, but I didn't find anything about that. So I can only hope that that's getting included in this cleanup plan. The cleanup plan, and here's the thing. The cleanup plans are set for completion in 2025 when the 7-year cycle of the president's 2018 commitment expires. What happens next remains unclear. So funding from the state budget to clean up the Citarum was cut from the original allocation in 2020 and 2021. So it's kind of is it going to work? We hope so, but it's going to take like everyone to be in on this, and it's not.
That's right.
I don't know.
But it will come down to whether or not it can be leveraged as a political win.
Yeah, and that's what it's like. It's talking about here, like, he's trying to get this done before that cycle.
Yeah, which is commendable.
Ends. So, but it's
going to take far beyond your election cycle, brother.
It is. Yeah. Most of those kinds of things do. So, also cleanup, like I said, it's difficult. Heavy metals take years to decades during active cleanup. Some residents of local villages and towns have made their own task forces to help with the solid waste cleanup, which is like really the only thing they can kind of help with. I mean, they don't have materials and cleanup and money and stuff to go in to try to clean up from the industries and stuff. But there are organizations such as Greeneration Foundation, it's fun to say, Waste for Change, and River Recycle, operating out of the capital of Bandung. So unfortunately, the river is still in bad shape, but hopefully, with continued efforts, that can change. Not that really anyone can afford it right now. Well, maybe some can. But these organizations I mentioned trying to help clean up the Citarum River do take donations on their website if this is something you are passionate about and want to help them with. So
go for it.
Let's move over to Spain. Not actually move over to Spain. I mean, that'd be nice. It'd be cool to like
fiestas every day. Let's do it.
Also the food. Specifically though, southwestern Spain, where the Rio Tinto River flows from Sierra Moreno Mountains of Andalusia to, am I saying that right? Andalusia?
Yeah.
Andalusia.
Right.
Andalusia. To the Gulf of...
saying it like Antonio Banderas.
To the Gulf of Cadiz in Huelva. Rio Tinto means stained river, and it lives up to its name, despite it having little to no life in it, because it lives up to its name. Anyway, in some regions, about 50 kilometers of the 100 kilometers long river, so like half the length of this river, the water is reddish orange to like a blood red in color. As it flows further south and mixes with other streams and rivers headed to the Atlantic Ocean, the color changes to a more normal color. So where does this red hue come from, and why is it on our list? Mining.
Heyo.
It actually gets its coloring from iron in the water. This area has been a site for mining for at least 5,000 years.
I'm sorry. Did you say 5,000?
I did.
Years?
So large amounts of ores such as copper, silver, and gold, as well as iron and manganese, have been mined for these thousands of years by everyone from the Tartessians and Iberians to the Phoenicians, Greeks, Romans, Visigoths, and Moors.
Wow.
Yeah. And as a result, the pH of the river is at a very acidic 2 on the pH scale.
Brother.
This is basically vinegar.
That's in the basement, dog.
Acid-tainted water from the mining of these materials constantly flows out of these mines and has flowed into the river over the years. This acidic water dissolves heavy metals into the area, so into the water, and can have horrible environmental effects.
Well, yeah.
It did not help that the mines were rediscovered around 1556 and began to be worked again around the early 1700s. The first written document on pollution of the river by this acidic mining drainage actually comes from a 1556 report by a priest who was named Diego Delgado, who was exploring the region's mining possibilities on behalf of King Philip II.
He sent a priest to explore mining possibilities.
Yeah, well,
was he thinking like the Lord will help him?
Yeah.
Obviously, he's a mining expert. Interesting.
There you go. While exploring existing Roman mining galleries and caves, he wrote, these are his words, "We also visited another cave which was full of water, and from under which sprang a river said to be the Rio Tinto. No fish or other life existed in this river, neither do people or animals drink it, nor are its waters used for anything else. It has another property that if you place iron in the water, it dissolves in a few days. This I tested and proved myself.
Holy cow. I
took a live frog and threw it in the river, and it died without being able to leave the water," which is just freaking mean. Why would you do that? How would you do that? It dissolved iron? That wasn't good enough for you?
You see, Rebecca, it was God's will for that frog to die. Sorry. I'm just...
Throw him in the river.
I'm just...
See if he likes it. You know what I mean? What the heck?
I'm just talking like a Calvinist.
With you. Anyway, in 1873...
That frog just needed to pull itself up by its bootstraps. Yeah.
If I seen that, I would have kicked that man in and be like,
That's
what?
Right.
You like it? Huh? In 1873, the Rio Tinto Company, which is a British-Australian company.
Because imperialism.
Yeah. British and Australian, I should, company.
Right.
Yeah.
The British owned Australia.
Yeah, I know. But I'm just, bought and operated the mines. Mining actually stopped in 2001, but this company is still around, and mining there resumed for copper in 2016.
I love it. God.
Oh, no, you're going to
talk about a legacy company. 500 years.
You just wait, because I went down a rabbit hole.
Oh, let's do this.
This company.
Let's do this. Leroy Jenkins.
There's a lot of controversy surrounding this company.
You don't say.
The
plot thickens. Directed by Ben Stiller.
They also own other mines around the world, such as in Madagascar, where they have also caused problems.
In countries where they don't give a crap what happens to the people.
Yeah, just listen to this. This mining operation, it was known as, it's QIT. I'm not going to butcher that. Minerals, Madagascar. It lies in an area near Fort Dauphin on the far southeastern coast of Madagascar, where 91% of people live in poverty and 80% of the rural population wholly depend on natural resources for their survival, like rivers. It is literally one of the poorest regions, in the 5th poorest region in the world. Okay.
Easy to exploit.
The mining operation has contaminated water with uranium levels found to be 50 times higher than the World Health Organization safe drinking water guidelines in some parts of the waterways and lakes adjacent to the mine, which the majority of the 15,000 people living near the site use for drinking and domestic purposes. They have made it harder for the locals to use land for farming, as you can imagine, and have contaminated the water and soil. In 2022, their tailings dam, which is like this man-made structure used to store waste from mining operations, it actually broke, and they ended up releasing 1 million cubic meters of mining wastewater, which caused fish kills in the rivers and lakes below.
Oh, God.
As such, fishing was banned for a time because of the contamination, further hurting the people's food supply and economy. This, of course, led to many conflicts with locals against the company, who attempted to pay them off with a gagging order attached, right? Yeah. They were told, So the people...
So much fun.
Yeah. The people were told if they stopped protesting, the company would compensate their losses, but that they were also not allowed to discuss the deal outside of negotiations or whatnot. They were given papers to sign without having the contents explained or read, and the people were not given copies of these papers.
What year is this?
2012, I think. Hang on.
So that is
no,
what
2022. I'm sorry. This is 2022. My bad.
So that is what we call an NDA.
Mm-hmm.
That's basically what they're trying to do.
Yeah, I know.
Anytime NDAs do not cover, at least in the U.S., and these are Western-based companies, so they know NDAs don't cover not discussing illegal activity. If there's a crime being committed, the NDA doesn't apply. So it's just hysterical. And side note, I've mentioned in the past how I escaped fundamentalist Christianity and all that stuff, and all sorts of toxic spiritual abuse. NDAs are a big part of the playbook of toxic leadership in those situations. Anytime I see, we had them, they made me sign an NDA, I immediately know that they're crooks.
Yeah, you keep them quiet. You keep them quiet so they can't give away all your criminal crap. Right. All your shady stuff. Now, this is also in Madagascar. I don't know what the laws in terms of pollution and water stuff are here, but yeah, it's rough. So yeah, just a side note with this company, if you look them up, you can find a lot of tea on them. It's a lot.
I love it.
Everything from environmental concerns to social issues to human rights issues. There have been complaints of sexual harassment and assault, racism, and safety failures with these mines as well. There has been corruption. There's been corruption allegations and even accusations of planning and funding the murder of a right to information's activist, Sheila Massoud, in Bhopal, India. There have
Bhopal, you say?
Bhopal, yeah. While there's no evidence that's been found for this particular accusation that they planned and funded this, public opinion on the matter has prevailed.
100% did it.
Prevailed.
TLDR, they did it.
Yeah. So there was also an investigation by the SEC, Securities and Exchange Commission, around 2013 for an impairment charge concerning their mine located in Mozambique. It was like this whole fraud sort of deal that they were trying to, They also have mines in Australia, where in 2020 and 2023, they destroyed sacred Aboriginal rock shelters, one that was at least 46,000 years old. Now, this was apparently legal at the time that they blew this up, but it caused a lot of controversy. They blew it up. Yeah. So.
Oh man, I just love.
I don't know how it was legal or if there was like a loophole that they found, but they weren't like.
I just love that it's not that they hit it with a hammer and scratched it.
No, they
oh no, we're so sorry. No, they drilled holes in that sucker.
They exploded it
and put dynamite in those holes,
boom, boom.
And then wired that sucker up and then said fire in the hole.
Yeah. Also in Western Australia in 2023, the company announced that it had misplaced a capsule of radioactive material that was being transported from one of their mines. The capsule was an 8 by 6 millimeter cylinder containing 19 gigabecquerels. And please don't make me do the whole ratios where I explain how many curies that is, but it was of it's a lot. Okay,
yeah, just real quick, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Okay, but it was cesium-137.
I have heard of that.
There you go.
Because of you.
It contained a cesium-137 ceramic source. So, but they misplaced it, and it had the capability of causing serious illness if not handled correctly. According to the company, though, the capsule was it was lost somewhere between Newman and Perth, which was like a distance of 1,400 kilometers. It was finally found and recovered later that month, though. So there's that.
Where?
I'm not done with them, though. Still not done with them yet. Oh, I didn't see that. So they also have mines in Mongolia and soon to have mines in Serbia as well. Though those living in Serbia have protested against this. They had a mine in Papua New Guinea where they faced a lawsuit in 2000 for contaminating the locals' waterways with more than 1 billion tons of mining waste, as well as with human rights violations. Oh, and they also want to start up a copper mine operation here in the U.S. because the U.S. agreed to give them Oak Flat in Arizona to do so. Environmentalists, though, and Apache tribes in the area have greatly protested this venture as it would destroy land and sacred areas, as well as lead to groundwater contamination. The land's transfer was paused in 2021 after attempts to do so. So for now, this operation is stalled.
Thank God.
So I guess we'll see what happens in the future. But anyway.
I hate them so much. And just so the listeners understand, like, okay, it's one thing to have a single mine or a couple of mining sites, okay? It's a completely different situation when you are international.
Oh, they have billions of dollars.
Right,
this company
right.
does.
They're a legacy company. They have built their wealth by exploiting people and land. That's all they're doing.
And they continue to do it.
That's right. They are not they're not actually helping anyone. They are building their own empire.
Now, back to the actual Rio Tinto River, because they named their company Rio Tinto, whatever, in Spain.
What?
Where, they named it that because that's where they had their first mine. They bought that one and went from there. There was actually a protest by 12,000 locals. This included farmers, miners, and others.
12,000?
Yeah, this was in 1888.
Bro. Okay.
Against the Rio Tinto company. The Rio Tinto company's been around for a little while.
1888.
Okay? Yeah. Yeah. So
that means they were writing letters and traveling from town to town, letting people know this date, this time.
Yeah, here we are.
Wow.
But they were protesting against them and the local government for releasing toxic fumes by burning pyrite in open air blast furnaces. This is a process called calcination. And it had actually been outlawed 24 years prior in England, the calcination process. Whoa. But they were doing it here.
You know how bad something's got to be to get outlawed in 1860 something in England?
1888. Yeah.
Yeah, but you said it was 20 years before.
Yeah, that's true. Now these fumes had caused damage to farms, and the deforestation that went along with it was just staggering. Things got violent, however, as talks began between leaders, and the guards actually ended up firing on the protesters, killing at least 13 and injuring 35. These numbers have been long disputed over, however.
Well, of course.
Yeah. But that was what I could gather from what I read. So, that's the Rio Tinto company. So,
eat the rich.
Yeah. The Rio Tinto River, as I mentioned, is acidic, pH of 2 to 2.5. I've actually found where
I am just blown away by that.
It has actually been like in the 1.7 to 1.8 in some areas. It's basically like vinegar. It runs through an area rich in sulfide ore deposits from previous volcanoes millions of years ago. They're not there anymore. As the ores were mined and exposed to the air and water, acidic runoff is produced and it enters the waterways nearby. Yeah. In this case, the Rio Tinto.
Right. The water table is being completely disturbed by the mining operation.
And then this acidic water will not melt, but like dissolve heavy metals so that it sits in the sediment and everything like that. So, as Assistant Professor Sarah Kleindienst from the Center of Applied Geosciences at the University of Tübingen explains, I think it's Tübingen, this creates blood red, extremely acidic water that dissolves tons of other toxic metals such as manganese, cobalt, nickel, and cadmium from the rocks every year and washes them into the river. So. Now, the only life in this part of the river is that which can withstand such an extreme setting, also known as extremophiles. And you've probably heard of these, like living at the bottom of the ocean where the vents, geothermal vents and stuff are. In this case, microorganisms such as sulfide-eating bacteria, archaea, algae, yeasts, and fungi. So there's no fish, nothing like that. These organisms metabolize the sulfides into ferric iron, and that's where you get this sort of red color, or like it can go from like anywhere looking like kind of orangish to like blood red. It looks crazy.
Oh, it's like the Spooky Lake Month lady on TikTok.
That was
post was from the Middle East.
It was a different place, but but that was like salt and stuff. I can't remember all of it. Yeah,
It's wild to look at.
Pretty crazy. But yeah, the acid, like I said, causes heavy metals to dissolve in water. The Rio Tinto is one of the world's waterways most polluted with toxic or heavy metals, and even arsenic has been found in the sediment further downstream. Now, health concerns around the mines here and other mines owned by the Rio Tinto company include respiratory problems, skin diseases, pregnancy complications, and birth defects, as well as developmental complications. It isn't just the water that's contaminated, but also the mud and soil and the dust from mining that gets blown about. No one swims in this river or uses its water because of how acidic and polluted it is. It is studied, however, by those who research extremophiles, as we mentioned earlier, as well as astrobiologists, because the extreme conditions are actually reminiscent of those on Mars with its liquid groundwater. Like they're trying to see if life can live here, then are there extremophiles that can live there? Yeah. Also, it's theorized that Jupiter's moon, Europa, has an acidic ocean under its icy surface. And since there are various microorganisms, like I said, that can live in the Rio Tinto, then scientists can better understand the possibility of such organisms being found in other parts of the solar system. So that's where they're coming from with that.
Europa is a destination in my favorite video game.
I know that. I knew you were going to say it too. I was like, he's going to love that part.
It's fantastic. It's been terraformed to be habitable, but it's more like an ice planet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah. It's
fascinating.
Icy. Okay. The Ganges River.
Cool.
The Ganges River is located in northern India, running from the Himalaya Mountains to the Bay of Bengal through Bangladesh. And there's been some like dispute on who the river is more important to, but it runs through both. Okay. Also called the Ganga in Hindi. It's actually it's considered among Hindus to be holy and sacred as it personifies the goddess Ganga.
Oh, I see.
Okay. So bear with me here. There's a lot of lore behind this, like Hindu.
Give me all the lore
stories and such. So. There's actually many stories actually behind this, but essentially the goddess Ganga was sent or brought to the earth as a river to wash away sins and to assist souls to their heaven, basically. So it is believed that bathing in the river on certain occasions, though many believe any occasion, will bring forgiveness of transgressions and salvation. And there's actually certain parts along the river that are considered more sacred than others. Like there's a few like different areas where they have temples and such. But aside from bathing in the water, people bring ashes of loved ones that have passed on to spread in the water. They believe that doing so will send them to moksha, which is like the end game of reincarnation to them. So like their paradise. It's basically a liberation from the birth, death, rebirth cycle and all that. There are actually temples, as I mentioned, at various parts that perform cremation like on the spot so that ashes can be thrown in. Yeah. Now the Ganges is considered I believe I'm saying this right, a tirtha, which means a crossing point between heaven and earth. At a tirtha, prayers and offerings are thought most likely to reach the gods, so like certain places. And in the other direction, blessings can descend like easiest from heaven in that place. It's like kind of
it's a thin place.
It's a thin place. Yeah. It's like yeah.
Yes.
So the river is, along with two other sites, the location of the Kumbh Mela ritual, which dates back to at least the 7th century CE. Now held every 3 years, Hindu pilgrims of all social status perform a ritual bathing in the river, which is thought to purify body and soul and wash away karma and bring good fortune. Which is ironic considering how toxic this river is, actually.
Yeah, it's very ironic.
The event can involve from like 70 to 100 million people
Peepers.
Peepers.
You said it right the first time.
People, 70 to 100 million people, and it grows ever bigger and can claim to be basically the largest human gathering in history, which sounds terrible to me because something like that.
Who I hate.
But good for them. Waters from the Ganges are also collected by believers and taken home for use in rituals and as an offering.
Oh, no.
Like, because the water is sacred to them. Drops from the river are also dropped into the mouth before a body is cremated. So now it's believed in some areas that drinking water from the Ganga with one's last breath will take the soul to heaven. Let's see. In most Hindu families, a vial of water from the Ganges is kept in every house. This is done because it is good to have water of the holy Ganga in the house.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of sad that their sacred place is, dealing with so much pollution. Like, I wish for them, just for their sake, that their sacred space was beautiful, not polluted. And
well, unfortunately, some of the religious things kind of add to the pollution, but we'll go over that. Mainly, yeah. It's not because they're trying to pollute it.
Yeah.
But like,
they're I guess you would say, pleasantly ignorant of what's going on with those situations.
Okay, yeah, well. But if someone is dying, that person may drink its water as well. I mean, at that point, it's not gonna.
Yeah.
Many Hindus believe that the water from the Ganges can cleanse a person's soul of all past sins, and that it can also cure sickness, which is, again, ironic in this case.
Yep.
They're taking it from a spiritual perspective, though, not a.
Certainly. Yeah, there's no medical whatever involved in this. Yeah.
Now, the ancient scriptures mention that the water of the Ganges carries the blessings of Lord Vishnu's feet. Hence, Mother Ganges is also known as Vishnupadi, which means emanating from the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord Sri Vishnu. I could be saying some of that wrong. I'm sorry. So onto why it's on this list, though. The Ganges is not just sacred in Hinduism, but it supplies water to 40% of India's population for drinking, bathing, and irrigating crops.
That's a ton of people.
It serves up to 500 million people, more than any other river in the world. It is also one of the most polluted rivers in the world. At one point, it was like the most polluted river in the world. And most of the pollution here is caused by human waste, industrial waste, and, as we've already mentioned, religious ceremonies. For a long time, sewage has entered the river untreated. Even as of 2022, only 37% of the 72,368 million liters per day.
Wow.
It's just a really hard number to.
It's tough to get your head around that.
Of sewage. So is treated. That's the only amount, like 37% of that. So the huge population this river supplies and serves, most sewage goes into the Ganges with no treatment whatsoever. So while there are some treatment facilities set up, many are not operating. They're just kind of broken down, or there's nobody to operate them, that kind of thing. There are also many different kinds of industrial factories that dump their waste into the Ganges. These include tanneries, textile mills, distilleries, slaughterhouses, and hospitals, along with others.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So basically, you've got plastics, heavy metals, dyes, biohazardous materials, animal carcasses and remains, and byproducts of other industries pouring in to this river. Let's see. There's also industrial waste coming into the Ganges from like tributaries of this river, like, incoming like streams and such, such as the Bandung River, where a coal-based power plant burns 600,000 tons of coal each year and dumps its waste, including a lot of toxic heavy metals like lead and copper, into the river. As for religious ceremonies being a problem, over 40,000 bodies are cremated each year and put into the Ganges.
You said 40,000, the remains of 40,000 cremated bodies.
Yeah. Some may be just ashes, but others may be just half-burned corpses because wood for the cremation process isn't cheap.
Oh, it's done with wood.
And so okay. So some families do the best they can.
Wow.
Right? So, yeah. Now, because of the amount of fecal-borne bacteria in the water of the Ganges, research in 2006 put the incidence of waterborne illnesses, including acute gastrointestinal diseases, at 66%. So, yeah, you got a 66% chance of getting really sick if you get in that water.
Oh, my gosh.
The coliform bacteria levels in the Ganges have also been tested at a level way too high to be considered safe for agricultural use, let alone for drinking or bathing. Mm-hmm. Over 370 miles of the river has been considered an ecological dead zone, meaning nothing lives in those parts, can't live in those parts. Farms also use this water on their crops, which leads to contamination of those as well. And many are using up water before it can even be replenished, because there's like so many using it for that reason. Mm-hmm. And obviously, like when the rainy seasons come, it can the flow of the river kind of goes up and down. Yeah. So there's that. As a result from pollution, especially the amount of human wastewater from the Ganges, there has been a link to dysentery, cholera, hepatitis, and severe diarrhea, which remains one of the leading causes of death among children in India, because dehydration and Also, the fish in these waters have accumulated high levels of heavy metals and other toxins. There have been proposals and efforts in the past to clean up the river, but they were not super successful. The Clean Ganga Fund was approved in 2014, providing funds to clean up the Ganges, set up waste treatment plants, conserve biotic diversity, create public amenities, and redevelopment of temples, as well as research and development to help matters. It's definitely an uphill battle, and I hope they make some progress. I haven't seen all that much in terms of an update on that, really.
You said redevelopment of temples.
Yeah.
That's an interesting part of that. Yeah. That's not ecological, I'm assuming.
And I guess because they're really old, and part of that is maybe for religious significance, but maybe part of that is how they do cremation too. I'm not sure.
They didn't maybe historical landmarks.
Could be,
they've been there for,
because they didn't really specify on that part, really. So, but now there's also been protests to remove the dams blocking parts of the river, as it has had a detrimental effect on the wildlife, including the severely endangered Ganges river dolphin. So, but that's the river Ganges, and I've been looking for updates, like I said, on how that's going, but it's still.
You really couldn't find?
It's still pretty gross.
Current data.
I mean, like, it's still like a lot of the data that I found for the bacteria levels and stuff was, recent enough, still in the 2000s, but as far as cleanup goes, I mean, the cleanup fund was only approved in like 2014, and it takes a while to clean up something like that. So, okay, so I want to discuss a river in the U.S. that is at the top of most polluted rivers here. Can you guess which one that would be?
The Savannah?
No.
Okay.
Although it is polluted too.
Trying to think. The Allegheny. No. The Mississippi.
Close.
Oh. Colorado River. Shucks, I don't know.
The Ohio River.
The Ohio River. Okay.
I was actually going to think, I was kind of going between the Mississippi and the Ohio, and the Delaware and the Hudson.
Yeah, the Hudson, bro, is
So,
the native New Yorkers know. They're like, don't you get in that water.
but as I said, I can't discuss them all in one episode.
Yes.
So I had to pick one.
Do you want to, though?
I mean,
Yes.
but I'd probably burn myself out doing it.
That's true.
I should probably explain, though, first what a Superfund site is. I know we've mentioned it.
Yes, we have. We mentioned it in the Radium Girls series.
Yeah.
Where there's a site in Orange, New Jersey, the former site of a clock and watch factory that is still contaminated to this day.
Yeah, and some contamination was actually like moved over to like school areas and stuff and neighborhoods, so that's not cool. But yeah, Superfund sites. It's an American sort of thing.
It's an EPA designation, right?
So it's a term that is used in America for sites that have been polluted and are prioritized for cleanup. So.
Yes, it's a pragmatic way to say it's really bad.
Yeah. But I just didn't want it to come out of nowhere and you'd be like, what the heck is that? But yeah, a Superfund site is a U.S. location that has been polluted by hazardous materials and waste and where cleanup is required. The U.S. EPA identifies these sites and puts them on a list known as the NPL, which stands for National Priorities List. They also go after those who cause the mess and, attempt to hold them responsible as much as the law will allow. So yeah, if U.S. bodies of water enter the chat, you may hear me call them a Superfund site, not a Superfund site, a Superfund site.
There's a D on the end.
Because they need super funding to be cleaned up because it is expensive and difficult at times.
Corporate America puts the fun in Superfund.
Now, yes, so we have our own many polluted rivers here, including the Ohio. And I'm going to tell you about it as soon as I find my spot.
I see you scrolling.
Okay. So pollution of this river goes back as far as the mid-19th century with the rise of industrialization.
Of course.
Industries such as meat packing, steel companies, coal mining. Think of the acid drainage we talked about with the Rio Tinto mining stuff. Petroleum facilities. These particular facilities dumped byproducts such as benzene, vinyl chloride, and trichloroethylene. So I just wanted to give those specifics. But also those producing and dumping such chemicals as dioxin, mercury, and PFAs. And we've definitely talked about dioxin and mercury.
PFA is what?
PFAs are not something we've covered, but they stand for perfluoroalkyl and polyfluoroalkyl substances.
Oh, okay.
These are man-made chemicals found in many consumer items and are toxic and persistent in the environment.
You've already mentioned at least two compounds that involve fluoride or chlorine. Those are they're on the far right side. Are they noble gases? I think are they in the noble gas family?
Noble gases, fluorine?
Yeah, and chlorine.
Noble gases don't react very much.
Okay, am I thinking of the wrong?
But they're on the periodic table. They are next to the noble gases, but I know the noble gases they don't strongly react. They are known as reactive nonmetals. That sounds better. Reactive nonmetals.
Gotcha. But they can wreak havoc with organic compounds because they can easily yank a hydrogen ion off of another molecule. Yeah,
your noble gases are like helium, neon, krypton.
Right, okay. Yeah. I just called it the wrong thing. But yeah.
But it's next to that on the periodic table.
Yes.
It is next to it.
Yes,
So
that's right.
Yeah. Fun times though. So exposure to these PFAs has been linked to many health issues, including cancers, liver and kidney damage, and immune system dysfunction. They can also cause gestational hypertension, gestational diabetes in pregnant women. These can leak into the air, water, or soil. They get into the groundwater pretty easily, and they are persistent. They can bioaccumulate, so if you eat contaminated foods, you can also be affected. So they just like to stick around. They're hard to get rid of. So all of these industries have polluted the river, causing contamination of the water and fish, resulting in fish kills. amphibians having like one leg or, just different stuff, lots of different stuff. Defects. Also like reproductive type issues, that kind of thing. So in 1969, the Cuyahoga River, which is connected to the Ohio River, and is a tributary to Lake Erie. I say connected, but
Does the Ohio River run along the southern border of Ohio? Is that what creates that southern border?
You're gonna ask me all these geographical questions.
Sorry, please continue. Don't worry about that.
I just know it's near Lake Erie.
Okay, which is the northern part of.
Well, there you go.
Okay.
Cool. With our powers combined. But yes, so the Cuyahoga River actually caught fire, which caught the attention of the public to the situation of industrial dumping. This was in 1969. Rivers don't normally catch fire, mind you. So,
True.
Now, but this was not the first time it had caught fire. This was the 13th time it had caught fire.
You say 13th?
Yeah, since 1868. So, not cool. So people began paying attention. And they're like, that's not normal. So contamination of the Ohio River in the past has led to higher cancer risks, neurological damage, skin irritation, gastrointestinal issues, reproductive issues, and developmental issues in children, especially if you're looking at all the chemicals I mentioned earlier, like dioxin, mercury, all those other things.
Mm-hmm.
Not cool. There's also been pollution in the form of agricultural runoff, introducing nitrogen high animal waste, and leading to algal blooms and decreasing fish and wildlife populations. I feel like we don't think enough about runoff from some of these farms, like even if it's chickens, like the manure from some of the manure that runs off and gets into like anything that's in there or anything that's fed to them, any bacteria they may have or anything that they may be contaminated with.
And these are the main culprits are going to be commercial farms. They're corporate operations. They operate at a scale and with certain methods that create biochemical boo-boos.
Yeah, and honestly, they really there has been some progress in how these animals are kept, but it still feels a little iffy for some places to me. But you also got like the nitrogen from the waste, all of that stuff, and it does make a difference in the water. You've also got pesticides from these farms as well, and also urban stormwater runoff from the cities, so whatever's coming out of there. Now, after the fire on the Cuyahoga River, outcry from the public helped lead to the passing, wasn't the only thing, but it helped lead to the passing of the Clean Water Act in 1972, which honestly was a big deal for us, concerning, ecological stiffs.
Big deal.
Now, strict regulations against dumping were put on companies and volunteer organizations formed, including the still annual Ohio River Sweep, which you can join. I think it's kid friendly too, so that's a pretty cool way to teach, kids to keep things clean.
Yeah.
Now, old dams were also removed to improve water flow and oxygen levels in the water. So it's moving around, helping the fish make a comeback, I guess, The bacterial levels in the water have declined below advisory levels since the 1970s, except after heavy rainfalls, which I'm guessing that's because when there's heavy rainfall, you've got more runoff entering.
More runoff, that's right.
So obviously levels of some more persistent chemicals and heavy metals will take longer to decline because they're again persistent and that kind of thing. Okay. I just want to briefly mention one more river because it's one of my favorites.
Okay.
It's not necessarily toxic, but it can be deadly. In the jungles of Peru runs the Sinai-Tempishka River.
Gotcha. Never heard of it.
Sinai-Tempishka River. The name means boiled with the heat of the sun in the Ashaninka language. Sometimes called the boiling river of the Amazon, it is the world's largest documented thermal river. It is a tributary of the Pakatia River, which flows into the Ucayali River. I may be saying that wrong. I've never been to the Amazon. I'm sorry. Which leads to the Amazon River. Another dangerous river in its own right, not because of so much pollution and toxicity that I know about, but the wildlife. Now, the whole of the Shainai Tempishka River is about 5.6 miles long, so not too long. But it's the last 3.9 miles that, well, boils, literally. It's just boiling water as a river. It's reportedly 15 feet deep at its deepest and 100 feet wide across at its widest. The river begins to boil as it runs over geological fault zones where these hot geothermal waters from inside the earth kind of rise to mix.
Okay, that's cool.
Turn the rest of the water hot enough to boil as well.
Really?
Yeah.
The whole river.
And it gets hot.
Buddy, that is
you
hot.
You cannot get in this part of the river.
That is an insane amount of heat.
The hottest temperature measured of the water at this river was an impressive 99.1 degrees Celsius.
Bro.
It's about 210 degrees Fahrenheit. So
okay.
The water temperature is so hot that any animal that is unfortunate enough to fall in is killed. Like there is just you can't get in. You can't get in this water. Now, there are 3 communities, I think, living around this boiling river, and shamans of these villages have believed for a long time that the boiling water comes from a giant serpent spirit known as Yakumama, also known as Mother of the Waters.
Wow.
There is an eco lodge on the shore of the river, which you can travel to, and in that part, it's not as hot. They have their private owned little separate area of the river where it's not as hot as it was upstream, and you can actually swim in that part. But yeah, in that particular area, the water temp is more stable, so more like a hot spring. But the other parts of the river that are boiling, you cannot get in there. So
that's fascinating.
One of my favorite, rivers to talk about for some reason. I enjoy talking about it. But yeah, swim at your own risk, or don't swim in these rivers. At least, if you like talking about this kind of stuff, there are plenty of rivers I could choose for a later episode, a future episode.
Sure, let us know.
Not necessarily the next episode because there's other things I want to talk about, but I'd like to. We've yet to talk about so many. I have a list of them right here that I could go deep into, but
yeah,
it would take some time to do that. So
totally. All right, folks, that's going to do it for this episode. Thank you all so much for listening, and we'll see you in the next one.
Bye.
Bye-bye.